I'm lying in bed and literally the clouds start rumbling all around me. I'm in bed in a room in a house, but these major clouds just appear before me. They're thunderous. They're blue, white, purple, thunder rumbling all around me, moving very more and more rapidly until they part. And as they part, this beautiful marble staircase from earth to heaven emerges. And on each side of that staircase are angels, all dressed in white, going up to the top of this staircase. And at the top of the staircase are two thrones. And one of them is someone sitting in it, and that person is God the Father, and the other throne, God the Son, as I perceived it at 9 years of age. And so, you have to kind of listen at how I perceived it, because we have our, the way that the universe shows us things, right? And so I saw God the Father as this old man with long white curly hair. They were both wearing, to the floor white robes, gleaming white, and then Christ was portrayed as the way we all kind of see him, with the brown hair, the beard, the mustache, and everything. And
welcome in. I am so excited that you're here today. This guest is got me on pins and needles because I really, really want to learn everything that she knows. You guys are absolutely going to love her. If you're enjoying this content, go ahead and click that subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. And if you want to keep track of what's going on in this crazy world, I know it seems a little overwhelming right now. It's getting even more so. You might want to sign up for our Friday morning email newsletter. The link is in the description box down below. Every Friday morning, we send out a very short, very sweet, but informative email newsletter focusing on what we thought were the important events or good information happening around the planet. It's super easy to sign up. It's super free. The link is in the description box down below. I think you're going to love it. In today's toxic world, taking care of our health is more important than ever. One of the natural solutions I've integrated into my routine is the benefit of mushrooms. And the go-to place for me is Birch Boys. They are without a doubt one of the greatest resources for mushroom products on the planet. Made in the USA, sustainably sourced, and run by an absolute wonderful entrepreneur, Birch Boys has become my go-to for natural health solutions. While they have a wide variety of mushroom products, the two that I use every day are right here. First, I use the ChagaNOW, which is a wonderful mixture that I put a tiny little scoop in my morning coffee to support my immune system. Chaga is one of the most effective immune support compounds on the planet, and this is a super way to get it into your daily diet in an easy to use formula and very, very effective for immune system support. And if you're looking for clear thinking, I can tell you, you'll be surprised at the effects of Lion's Mane. I use this Lion's Mane Tincture, 1 teaspoon every single morning, and the difference in the clarity of my thinking is extraordinary. I was actually really, really surprised. Birch Boys has a whole lineup of mushroom tinctures. Make sure you check them out when you're on the website, but I'll tell you what, these are my two favorite, and I use them every single day. They are absolutely a quality company built on integrity. Go to birchboys.com and use the code NEWEARTH for 20% off your entire order. Birch Boys mushroom products, I think you're going to love it. And with that, I would like to welcome in the multi-talented Marilynn Hughes. Marilynn, how are you today?
good. How are you?
I'm so good. I am so excited to talk with you, and I'll tell you guys the story of how this happened. I was on YouTube, looking at videos and stuff, and I stumbled upon her YouTube channel, and it's like the out of body Institute or something like that. She could inform me of
Travel
what it
Foundation,
actually,
yes.
yeah. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is one of my hot buttons right now. And I really, really am so fascinated with it. So I said, I got to get this girl on the channel. So we're going to learn about her together. So Marilynn, I know that you are skilled intuitively, spiritually into so many different areas. How did this all start for you?
Well, it started from the pretty much the very beginning, when I was a child. So, kind of hit very early on. I was always very interested in spirituality, probably from the moment of birth, but from the time that I remember anyway. And I had my first out-of-body experience when I was 9 years old. And it was a profound like vision experience. And it was something that like portended of what was to come. But of course, at the time, I didn't really know what it meant exactly. I just, okay, there's something ahead, But I had this really like earth shattering experience. And just imagine yourself at the age of 9, So I'm lying in bed and literally the clouds start rumbling all around me. I'm in bed in a room in a house, but these major clouds just appear before me. They're thunderous. They're blue, white, purple, thunder rumbling all around me, moving very more and more rapidly until they part. And as they part, this beautiful marble staircase from earth to heaven emerges. And on each side of that staircase are angels, all dressed in white, going up to the top of this staircase. And at the top of the staircase are 2 thrones. And one of them is someone sitting in it, and that person is God the Father, and the other throne, God the Son, as I perceived it at 9 years of age. And so, you have to kind of always how I perceived it, because we have our, the way that the universe shows us things, right? And so I saw God the Father as this old man with long white curly hair. They were both wearing, to the floor white robes, gleaming white, and then Christ was portrayed as the way we all kind of see him, with the brown hair, the beard, the mustache, and everything. And I was kind of, dumbfounded, of course. And I'm just kind of standing there, not sure what to do, but I'm kind of like wrapped in, what do you call it? There's, it's this moment where this has happened. And there are so many things that you now know to be true just by what has just happened alone. You know that God exists, that there is more than the body, that the spirit world is so much more than you could imagine it to be, that we are much more than our earthly lives. All these things, you know what I mean?
All this information comes pouring in instantaneously.
Exactly. It's not just one little level of information. It's all this, and you're 9 years old. So you're like, and so in a nutshell, what ends up happening is I'm summoned to come forward up the steps. And as I do, I experience this vision within a vision. And it starts with this long drawn out thing of how the future will be. And it's represented to me as the cross will be on fire. And what that is representing of is the fact that humanity is going to be completely like far away from God, far away from their souls. It's a much bigger symbol than what you would think. You know what I mean? And it's all being kind of downloaded into me as I'm watching it. And God is showing me, as a child, running, grabbing buckets of water, and I'm putting out the fire. I'm putting out the fire on the cross. And he says, this will be your task, is to put out the fire of the cross that is, Christ's cross that's burning on the cross of Christ. And I'm like taking this in, watching it, and trying to understand it somewhat. And I'm understanding it as this separation of humanity from their soul, this separation of humanity from God, this separation of humanity from true understanding, from who they really are. And then I'm shown in this vision within the vision, this period of time that I'll go through, and then how that will also extend throughout different periods of my life, where I will go through difficulties, persecutions and stuff in order to pull this off, in order to fulfill this destiny that I have ahead of me. And I was shown that this would just be part of the path, and I should not be concerned with it. It's just going to come. It's just going to come. Just be prepared for it. Don't be surprised by it. Just be prepared for it. And then there's other things that occur in this amazing thing, but I'm pulled back into the first place where I'm in the middle of the staircase. And then I'm told that this experience is going to be withdrawn, but it will come back to me later on, and then I'll know what to do. And I'm instructed to kind of like backtrack. I'm going down the staircase. I'm just in a state of awe and wonder, because you cannot even put into words what it was. The angels, the clouds, the majesty that was standing before me. It was just amazing. I go down, and then, the clouds come in and close it all up. And I'm just very shaken, very shaken. And I remember, running upstairs to tell my mother, who was not a believer in anything. She's pretty much an atheist. And she was also a German immigrant. And so she said, "You stop that nonsense. You stop making those things up." And that was where I learned very early on to keep things close to the vest. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. It's like, okay, that's something I'm going to be keeping to myself from now on.
Right. And so then, so I had this amazing experience. It was life altering, earth shattering. And it completely changed the way I viewed things and everything, but my life continued. Mm-hmm. And then when I was 22 years old, all of a sudden it happened again. And it was shortly after the birth of my first child. And literally it was just like a few months after I'd given birth. And all of a sudden, I just entered into this profound vibrational state. This is what they talk about, the vibrational state, where everything is you're vibrating so fast that you don't really know what to make of it. It's very scary if you don't know what it is. It's very jarring. You hear the jet engine noises. You feel it literally sounds like you've got a jet right at the back of your head. It's so loud. And what that is, it's the sounds of the astral plane. It's the difference between the vibration of the physical realm and the next realm up, which would be the astral realm. But again, that's just the beginning. So, the astral realm is literally just a slight step up, but see what the difference is there, that it makes such a difference when people go into the vibrational state, and then they have those loud jet engine noises, and we have such a huge difference. And, in a lot of my books, I talk about, because that was, like 40 years ago, we talk about going into higher and higher and higher and higher worlds, higher and higher and higher spheres. And then you imagine, well, what are the vibration levels of these higher and higher and higher and higher worlds? And that's what a lot of these books that I've written about, and the experiences that I would have in subsequent years were about, was becoming compatible to these higher worlds, so that you could continue to go to higher and higher levels of knowledge and learning newer and newer things. So I have the next experience, which is, the first experience in my adult life, which is much more simple, where roll out of the body, bounce up to the ceiling, see my body on the bed below, looks like a gray clump of matter. And at that time, I'm really afraid because I'm thinking, I'm 22 years old. Am I dying? What's going on here? You know what I mean? And,
Yeah, I'd wonder the same thing.
yeah. So that's kind of what I was thinking. And it was so powerful. A lot of people have that fear because it's so powerful. The vibrations, you are vibrating at such a profound, powerful level. And the noises, and you also hear the voices. You hear the voices all around you. And what that is, a lot of people are like, what are all those voices? It's the thoughts of humanity coming from the earth. And those populate around the astral plane. And so you immediately touch into all these thoughts, and it manifests as all these voices, all these random thoughts that you're hearing. And you're like, what is this? You know what I mean? And it's the random thoughts of humanity that are just floating around in the astral sphere.
Wow. Okay, so the one that happened when you were 22, was there anything that you think triggered it? Were you feeling a certain way? Were you anything at all, or did it just happened out of the blue?
That one, I would say maybe my own spiritual seeking might have triggered it, but if anything, but nothing more than that. I was fine physically, nothing different. It seemed to me that in my case, in that instance, it was simply time. It was time for me to wake back up.
Okay. All right.
And it started this way. In the next experience, because I was afraid, I prayed a lot and asked for God to help me so I would not be afraid the next time. And the next time, as a result of me asking for that assistance, there were 6 angels, 3 on each side of me, to help me get out the second time, so that I would not, and I had no fear of it that time, because they were just 3 on each side, light beings, just beautiful beings of light, angels with the wings and all that, but just pure light. And the unconditional love that you touch into, that everyone talks about, near-death experiencers and out-of-body travelers alike, is there. But you also touch into this universal consciousness, the mind of God. And so there are moments where you touch into this stream of knowledge. And for those moments, everything makes sense. All of a sudden, you understand everything. The things that you question and whatever, it's just, oh, I get it. You get it all. And you get things that you don't even wonder about on Earth. And then, some of that comes back with you, and some of it you don't take with you or retain with you. But every time you have an additional experience, it's like you're bringing a little bit more of heaven back to earth with you.
Okay. A little broader understanding.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
This is remarkable.
Well, and that was just the beginning of what would begin literally thousands of out-of-body experiences over the next 40 years or so.
Okay. So that sounds like it went from spontaneous to intentional.
Well, I'll explain that too. So it became where it was spontaneous. And then I started trying to intentionally bring them about more. And then I wanted to try to control them more. But what I found was that when you try to control them yourself, your results were not as good when you allow God or the universal mind to control it, because of the fact that there is so much that we don't know about, that we limit our own experience. So if we try to control it, our tendency is going to be that we're going to try to think of things to do or try to have the experiences based on our very limited understanding of the actual topography of the cosmological universe. And what I found very quickly was that there is, this is just the beginning. So the astral plane was clearly very early on. It was just for learning the basics, like how do you move around in your spiritual body? How do you move through objects? How do you permeate physical matter? How do you start understanding, little basic things like, oh, people can't see me here. How do I communicate with other human beings? How do I communicate with souls?
Okay. So I want to ask a couple questions.
Sure.
It sounds like it's almost as though you're a child again in a sandbox and you're learning, oh, when I scoop the sand with my hand, some of it rings through my finger, or some of, when I push the sand, it does this. So you're just learning this new environment
Yes,
through just experiences.
you do. Yes, you
Okay,
do.
and my second question is, what the heck is your physical body doing while you're out doing other
Usually
stuff?
it's in a state of sleep
Okay.
or various states of sleep or unconsciousness of sleep, some type of level of that. And so, but what you would find is that just to give you like more of a general overview, and then you can tell me which part of that you want to explore, is you start at the astral plane, but then you found very quickly as well, there's all these corridors from the astral plane, all these places that you can travel through. So there's the tunnel through time, which is what a lot of people who have NDEs will describe as the dark tunnel with the light at the end. That is seen in near-death experiences, but it is also seen when souls are traveling forward or backwards in time. And so you would start experiencing going into past lifetimes, sometimes even future lifetimes or parallel lifetimes. But you started getting taken into prominent moments in your own karmic history. And so if you start journaling these experiences, then you become more able to see the patterns and things that are being brought up to you that you actually incarnated here to do differently this time around. But then there's also all these other corridors. So there's corridors that go into the creative realms of the heavens. There's corridors that go into the celestial spheres, corridors that go into the initiations into the mysteries realms, the rites of passage realms, the different levels, because literally the third realm, which is part of the physical, the astral is the fourth, but literally the realms of light, 5 and above, go on into infinity. And so there's literally hundreds and hundreds and thousands of these light worlds that you can travel to, cities of light, galactic heavens, different worlds in the heavens, different realms of heaven. And then even beyond that, you would also be taken into purgatories and hell realms. And the purpose of this is because you'll see from the very beginning of my experiences, I was given spiritual teachers and angels and spiritual guardians and guides who came and they would teach me for a time, and they would have certain purposes. Like, I'm going to teach you about the concept of oneness would be the very first thing, but then it would constantly go up to the next level. So there would have to be a constant cycling to the next teacher, the next master, the next, guardian. And so you have this array of personalities that are coming in to teach you all these amazing things. And then, but they're coming from these higher spheres, right? So they're coming down below from where they reside to help us. And one of the things that they tell you very early on is that we must all give back to creation that which creation gives to us. And in order for us to continue the progression and to earn the things that are given to us, we must also give to those who reside in realms who might be below our own. And so we are taught how to assist souls who are struggling in purgatorial realms and in lower hellish realms to rise above where they are, as well as working with human souls in what are called the mortal worlds, realms 3 and 4, which is where we are here. So working with souls incarnate in physical flasks. And
Okay.
so does this make sense so far?
It does, and it's fascinating. And you're doing such a beautiful job of describing it very clearly. I have a couple questions. First
Sure.
off, when you're traveling out of your body and you're in other realms, what is the reaction to those entities that reside in those realms when they see you? They've got to notice that you're different in some ways.
Well, it depends where. So, like, for instance, I'll give you some examples. If you're going into like the higher realms, the lighted realms, they usually have the capacity to tell that you're not dead.
Yeah.
And so they will oftentimes make note of that. They'll be like, oh, we have a non-deceased in our presence, and then they'll be like, okay, well, what are you doing here, and what can we do to help you, and
Yeah.
that kind of thing. But you also have, like, for instance, to show you like the shadow side of things, when you are taken like to learn how to assist souls in lower realms, when you go into the darker realms, those souls can also identify if you are a soul who comes from the light. And it's not a good thing if they identify you. So what you have to actually do is you have to learn to hold in your light. There's a whole process of training that you have to undergo before you can actually do these things, because it's actually, difficult and sometimes dangerous to go in. You don't want them to know who you are. Your job is to go in, be unseen, get to the soul who needs assistance without them recognizing that you're there and you don't belong there, because it can be almost like a feeding frenzy and it becomes a spiritual warfare then.
So is it that they want your light or they want to bring you down to where they're at?
A little bit of both. It's
Okay.
a little bit of both.
All right.
Yes.
Well, that
Yes.
sounds like someplace I would stay away from if it were me. Yeah. Okay, so you're traveling around. This is a goofy question. I'm just curious.
No
When
worries.
you're out of body, do you ever run into someone else who's out of body?
Yes, you
Oh my
do.
gosh.
You do. You do. You
And
run into people who are doing that.
do you recognize like you're able to recognize, oh, that person is not dead. They're just traveling around.
You can sometimes, yes.
Hmm.
Sometimes they're able to recognize that in you. Sometimes they're not able to recognize that in you. I'll give you a goofy example, which is, so like I was taken, for instance, so like I mentioned how we're supposed to assist with souls. And one of the ways we help with souls who are actually still incarnate on earth is we work with their souls while they are unconscious, while they're sleeping at night, and they go into certain levels of consciousness. We are called in, but so are, angels and all kinds of, spiritual guides, teachers, guardians, masters work with souls while they are sleeping at night, working on us, on the things that we need to make adjustments on to help us to make the progress that we actually incarnated here to make. And so, when we start having out of body experiences and we are doing this and we're sent in to do helping missions, then we also work with souls who are not necessarily dead, but souls who are alive, but who are unconscious, who are being brought into these situations, and we are guiding them in one way or another. So there was an instance once where I was taken into a room of souls who were all sleeping, and they were talking about, what are you talking about, this out of body travel? This is crazy stuff. And I was like, And then they were going on and on and on about this, and I let them go on for a bit. And then I just very quietly said, well, what would you say if I told you that all of you are out of your bodies right now? And they just were shocked and they dumbfounded, and they're like, what? And then they looked around and they're like, and I said, don't panic, just take note of what's going on around you. Hold on a minute. And and then all of a sudden it's like they become awake in the dream, and they realize, and this is part of the way that God, the universe, our spiritual masters start the waking us up process when we are just, dead asleep in the physical realm. And we help to participate in that process in a variety of ways as we are learning to out-of-body travel. It's just part of the giving back. As creation continues to create, we give back to creation as creation also gives to us.
Right. So what you're referring to is the fact that most of us, maybe all of us, leave our bodies at night when we're sleeping and go do something else in some other dimension.
To some extent, that is true. However, it's hard to make like a blanket statement, because there are souls who do just go unconscious and nothing's happening. And it's just because that's what's going on with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I don't like to make blanket statements about anything,
right.
because there are situations, but the reality is that the majority of human souls will, at different points in their lives, this will be happening. And one of the things that I tell people, especially those who are afraid of the experience, who really want it, but they're afraid and they're having fear about it, and this helps them, is it's like, well, all you're doing is actually becoming consciously aware of something that's already going on.
Yeah.
And so it's not as intimidating when you realize this.
Yeah. So I have a daughter, Marilynn. When she sleeps, I am not kidding you. I'm not exaggerating, you guys. She looks like she's been punched out. I mean, she is so out of it. You would think that she had just been knocked to the ground. And I look at her and go, you're not in there. She is so not even in there. I mean, it's like, okay, there's a pulse, but that's about it.
Yep.
So it's like once you start recognizing that this happens, you can look at people and go, there's no one in there at the moment,
They're busy.
So I have a question for you personally.
Sure.
And that is that you must have made this deal before you incarnated that, okay,
Yes.
I'm going to go in and this is what I'm going to do, because, and maybe I'm assuming, and you can tell me what the truth is, because I'm assuming in my mind right now that you knew what was going to be happening on the planet, and you thought, I'm going to go in and help in this way by having these experiences, learning more about the other dimensions, and talking about it on Earth to help people recognize what the true nature of our reality is.
Yes. And, and I was shown that very early on, that it was something that was preordained. And, most of us do have a good part of our life, planned out before we come in, whether it's our, our little vocations in life, or our families, our relationships and stuff. These things are much more plotted out than we realize. We do, however, one of the things I've also seen by having these experiences is that, our free will does impact, our plans, so we can alter those paths in good or not so good ways, throughout our lives. So that is also true, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. So you clearly learned how to manage these experiences, these out of body experiences. How do you work with it now? Is this something that you're doing on the regular? Is it kind of sort of a secondary job for you that you go and do work over there? How does this how does this interact with your physical life here in the third dimension?
Well, it did become my vocation in life. It became almost like a religious vocation, so to speak. Maybe sometimes even more than I would have liked it to be, but I was given throughout these years very specific instructions on what I was to do. I would be given the titles of books I was to write, exactly what to write, and what I was supposed to do with everything. And so it was actually quite a lot of hard work to put everything and make everything happen. And it was a lot harder to, bring everything, every single thing back, and get it into written form, and then to do all the things that needed to be done to actually collate all that information and, get it to, it was a lot of work. And I still obviously am doing the same thing. And so it did become like my life's vocation. But I also, I raised my kids. I worked other jobs, for the, the regular requirements of life. And I, so I had my regular life, but it really did become a part and parcel of pretty much all of it, every part of it. Because it was such an all-encompassing kind of calling, I guess you
Yeah.
could say.
So help me understand, because I'm a human, I'm going to ask human questions.
It's
It
okay.
might be,
I'm a human too.
yeah, we're all human right now. So you're having kids alone is a full-time job. So
Yeah.
you've got a family, you're working outside of the home doing a job, and you're doing this astral travel work. I'm assuming that the astral travel work was at night when you were sleeping.
Some
Is
of it would be, during the day,
so you would say, "Oh,
times,
I'm going to lay down now,"
different
and I'm
times,
in,
whenever it
yeah.
was that I was asleep doing it. Yeah.
So when you're traveling, is your body still getting the rest it needs? So
Yes.
that okay, so well, I'm thinking you're just exhausted all the time. But if your body is getting what it needs, and our body needs regular sleep, it just does,
Right.
these meat suits that we're walking around in, it must have been almost information overload or just so much stimulus. If you're raising your children, you're working a job, and then you're doing all this work in the astral and the planes beyond, it must have been just a tremendous amount of work.
Well, it was, and it would be, a lot of times I would be taking care of the kids during the day, and then I would do the writing and the work of that at night. And then I would, go to sleep sometime in the middle of the night. And then, it would just be it was a lot. It was a lot.
Yeah.
Um, but I also, the things that I was so blessed and honored to see and experience, I can never, I can never express enough gratitude for. I'm very, very lucky to have been allowed to experience those things and just have that in my conscious awareness. It's something
Mhm.
that I consider myself very lucky for that, and very, honored and blessed and grateful. But there is definitely information overload, and it wouldn't be as much so if you didn't have to try to bring it from heaven to earth by, writing it all down. And then, then you have to figure out how to disseminate it in all these different ways. And then I had to learn all these different technologies, and I was constantly learning new technologies and stuff to do the things I would be asked to do. I would not give it up for anything. But it was difficult. It was
It's a
difficult to
lot of
keep
work.
up.
Yeah. So I had a vision once where the whole room opened up and I saw this whole scene.
Mhm.
And what I'm trying to communicate to you guys that are watching is it's the weirdest thing because you instantaneously know volumes of information.
Yes.
You know it instantly. And not only do you know it, but you've integrated it and you understand it and you see how all the parts and pieces work together. So
Yes.
I had this thing where I saw this whole vision. I saw data in the sky above the
Yes.
locations, and I understood so much stuff like that. And why I'm bringing this up is that I can't even begin to imagine writing all that down. How
Yes.
on earth I would communicate all that information. And I just had one thing. When you're going into these different dimensions and getting all this stuff, where it's almost as though there's not language
Exactly. And in
to
fact, one of the
communicate
things
it.
I did over time was because one of the things I also do in my writing is I utilize the ancient sacred texts of the prophets, saints, mystics, sages, and ascetics, and I just started referring to it as mystical language because a lot of times I would find people don't understand mystical language as you're referring to it, whether it's what I'm trying to communicate or what St. Catherine of Siena was trying to communicate, or Paramahamsa Yogananda, or any of these great mystics from throughout time who are trying to convey an experience that sometimes might only be fully understood by someone else who has had it.
Yeah.
That makes
Yeah.
sense?
It makes total sense. It's like you can't communicate it. It needs to be experienced.
Yes.
So here's the next question I have for you, and I hope you'll come back because
I'd love to.
I could talk to you for 9 hours and not even get to the beginning of my questions. My next question is what, because you set this up prior to incarnating, and okay, I'm going to go in and do this work. And then they introduced you when you were 9, your guides and angels and that sort of thing. And it just went from there. What is the goal for the information that you're bringing onto the planet? How are you trying to impact the collective?
Well, that's a great question, actually, because there's an easy way to summarize it, which I think is good to kind of bring up. And, I was very lucky that I met a documentary filmmaker by the name of Brian Malum, and we've been working together for about 4 or 5 years now, putting together films that are encapsulating and really expressing some of these very important messages. And, it starts with this path of the soul. And we did I think it's the first one we did, the first documentary we did together. It's called The Grand Phases of the Soul, which describes in detail for people who read my first work, which is considered, the real important one for people to start with, The Mysteries of the Redemption, a treatise on out-of-body travel and mysticism. It lays out this whole path, the path of purification, discrimination, and discipline. And when you hear that word discrimination, people think of it in modern terminology. I want you to think about it in terms of ancient Buddhism, ancient monastic Buddhism. And it's more of discernment is what it meant for that. So it's really more, the path of discrimination is about discernment. And so purification, discrimination, or discernment, and the path of discipline. And these paths are unveiled in this book called The Mysteries of the Redemption. And the path of purification is the unveiling of this basic understanding of our human experience. If you are incarnate here on earth, You are here because you have purification of the soul to undergo. We live in what is called a mortal realm. This is the realms where the battles between good and evil rage. They go on inside of each of us and outside, and we see it here. There are other realms. They are the lower realms, the realms 1 and 2, which are, the lower spheres, which include, the dominantly dark and the hell realms we discussed before. The purgatorial realms are included in the mortal realms, but the realms 5 and above, the realms of the dominant light, and the realms that go higher and higher and higher, those are the realms where those are purified light. But how do we get to that? How do we stop the karmic circling? How do we get out of this cycle that many of us are stuck in here? And that's what this work is really about, is understanding this path of purification, learning what you need to do in order to identify why you are incarnate here. What are the vices? What are the misunderstandings about eternal love that are continuing to hitch you up? Hitch, not hit, but hitch when you go from lifetime to lifetime. What is it that is keeping you in this circular cycle, which is what many, many souls will do? They just keep going round and round and round. And so what's the difference between you and I and every other human soul versus like the great prophets, saints, mystics, sages, ascetics, and all the masters? It's that they figured that out. They figured out what was the golden key to being liberated from this level of spiritual development, this type of realm. And they left behind their knowledge in these golden keys. And these golden keys are found in the ancient sacred texts that they left behind right before they ascended this realm, never to return. And those things are lying around and we don't even realize it. So we have all this gold. And so when this came to me, when all of this started coming to me, so did the prophets, saints, mystics, sages, ascetics, and all the masters, because they wanted me to bring together the ancient sacred texts, which hold the keys. They hold these keys. And you'll see throughout my books that those ancient sacred texts are utilized to show people these mysteries are available to help us to break the cycle so that you don't have to waste any more time. Out-of-body travel provides something that few other tools provide. But there's also good news, because there's a way to do this even if you never have an out-of-body experience. So what happens in out-of-body travel that makes it so unique is that when you have out-of-body experiences, you experience something called energetic truth. And you're taken into this energetic truth of your own soul, as well as the energetic truth of all that is around you, this world, everything that you experience. But what happens is you see things very quickly and very clearly. And all of a sudden, the energetic knowledge of what it is that you are doing incorrectly, that's keeping you from progressing forward, is not only told to you, shown you, it is embodied within you. Just as you expressed just a few moments ago about that knowledge, it's coming into you in a way that you know it. And so now all of a sudden, instead of wasting 20, 30 years of, gosh, I just don't see, what am I doing wrong? All of a sudden, in the blink of an eye, God can reveal to you through your guardian angels, your masters, your teachers, your guides, your whoever he so chooses, they can bring to you this experience where that is just lit up in your consciousness and you just get it. You just understand it's this. Oh, this is the pattern I've been repeating in literally oodles and oodles of lifetimes, eons, and this is what I have to do different. And this is what I don't understand, either about myself, about love, about eternal love, about God, about the truth itself. And these are the steps that I need to take to finish this up this time around.
Yeah.
No more wasting time.
I have a weird question for you. Yeah, I'm sure you've heard this before.
I love weird questions.
Good. This is one of them. I had Isabel Green on my show. Her position is that the astral has been corrupted. And the reason that we keep coming back is because it's a soul trap. And there are entities there that grab us and throw us right back again. And that's what happens a lot with NDEers when they say, no, I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back, and go, no, you got to, and boom, you're back in your body. What do you think about that position? And there are other people that feel that way, that the astral is a trap and you've got to get past the astral and into the void in order to not be recycled back here on Earth.
Well, you don't want to spend a lot of time in the void either, but the astral realm is not a trap. It is a realm that serves its function exactly as it always has and exactly as it always will. So it's not a trap. It is an underworld, just like we are, meaning that this realm is filled with a lot of energetic debris and garbage.
The astral is.
Yes, it's not the astral realm, when people, part of the reason I refer to what I do is out of body travel rather than focusing on astral travel, astral projection, is because of the misnomer that people have that it's the same thing, and it's not, because the astral is a realm. Out of body travel means that you could be traveling to any number of realms. Astral is one particular realm, the fourth realm. And so I would agree with them that the astral realm is a place that people do not want to spend a bunch of time in. It has a purpose, and the purpose for, you're not going to avoid it because you do have to move through it to get to these other levels. It's just like saying, well, I don't want to do kindergarten. I'm going to go straight to first grade. You've got to actually move through the astral to get to the next levels up and up and up. And eventually, as you progress in your vibrational stages, you will be able to bypass it entirely. But yes, the astral realm is contaminated, but that's not because it's been corrupted. It's because it's always been corrupt. That's just the way it's always been. It is an overlay. It's a shadow of third dimensional reality. So it's really like what you would consider like the shadow counterpart of what we are here, which is, as if you look at the human being, we have good and evil, right? The astral realm is the shadow counterpart of that. It's a muck of all sorts of things. And so when you're going to try to go into something higher, the astral realm isn't that. It's just a shadow reality of the physical realm.
Okay.
So, so when you want to go higher, you're going to want to go to higher spheres, 5 and above. In terms of like when people are told, no, you have to go back, I would probably disagree with that, in that people are told when they are finished, here, and that they can actually cross. And when they do have to return because they have not finished their tasks here on Earth, the process is not and cannot be manipulated in that way by dark forces. There is an order in the universe in that sense. Unfortunately, there's dark forces that are at play, more than probably people are comfortable realizing. But in relation to when people are having a near-death experience and they're being told, no, you still got more to do, that's a legitimate thing that happens for souls. And the near-death experience has been brought about a lot in this time, because of the fact that the medical capabilities have obviously progressed, and it's given the opportunity to utilize these near encounters with death to actually create some spiritual awakening within humanity that couldn't happen before, because we couldn't have these people riding the borderland between life and death like that and still come back.
Right. Yeah, that's a very good point. You put that beautifully. Okay, I have another question. I'm endless questions. I could talk to you for so long. So the word on the street, the spiritual word on the street, is that we're moving out of the third dimension into the fifth dimension here on Earth. I don't know if you agree with that or not. However, if Earth is this gritty, tactile, dual, lots of duality, lots of conflict environment where souls incarnate into in order to learn these dense lessons. Like Earth is one lesson after another, and some of them are fun and some of them are painful, and they're all, filled with information. If Earth ascends, where are people going to go to get these gritty lessons? It's kind of like, well, you just took away boot camp for souls. If Earth is no longer this gritty place filled with duality and conflict and da-da-da-da-da. What's your opinion on that?
Well, I don't think that that's what's happening, but again, my opinion. But what I've seen has been the opposite. And ironically, it goes back to an experience I had years ago where the angels allowed me to experience my desire to, quote unquote, save the world. And
how'd that go?
I'll tell you. So what happened was I got pulled to the ground, and all these roots and plants were coming and pulling up, coming up from the earth and pulling me to the ground. And I was covered in all these roots and plants that were, all around me. And the angels came around me and they said, the earth serves its function to perfection. How do you save a world that works perfectly for what it was created to do?
Darn, good point.
Good point. Who am I? I'm just kind of a stupid human, but
good-hearted, good intentions.
Yeah, but I think what we forget is that the point of change that we have to start from within ourselves, and we forget that the point of change that we have is within ourselves. And when we think about propelling something into the fifth dimension, this is a natural and very inherent desire on the part of any awakening, ascending human being. It's a natural thing. And we always think we have to do it to the earth itself. But what's really happening is that is coming from the fact that we must do it to our own soul first.
Okay.
Yeah. And then as we do this, there is, I wish I could let you see what I'm seeing in my head right now, because I've been shown in these out-of-body experiences how every soul that makes this process happen and brings this about, there's a line of souls that are following. They're following the energetic trail as these souls ascend and leave this world. But it's not just that, because it's every soul that ascends and transcends and overcomes what we are to overcome in this world and learn all those dense lessons that we're talking about, becomes then a teacher of those who are then going to also follow. And we are doing it just in a very different way than we envision it, which, kind of goes back to what you had mentioned early on, which is well, do I try to control these experiences, or do I surrender and allow God to show me what I need to be doing or how it's done? And this is why you'll find in my books, I'm a very strong proponent of don't sell yourself short by trying to control it. Because when you control it, you are going to miss out on so much, because you are going to limit it to what you know.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to expand it to what God knows for you.
Yeah. And that
when you
happens
do
so
that, it's unbelievable what you will experience and see and go through.
yeah, that's such a good point, because that happens so much in life
Yes,
here in physical form, when we get so much more than we ever would have dreamed of.
exactly.
You know,
Yes.
and that happens to. Okay, so we're running out of time. I've talked your ear off already, asking questions. I have one last question for you, and this is important because it's near and dear to my heart.
Sure.
Is it your opinion that anyone who is interested in learning how to get out of body can do it?
I think that most people can have some type of experience with it. It varies on how prolific they will be or how often it will happen to them. There are some people who, no matter how long they try, may never have an experience of it, and that's totally okay. If one of the things that you'll find if you go to my website and my channels, which is outofbodytravel.org, and you can find everything else there, is that there are ways that you can instigate this whole process with the understanding of the paths of purification and all that comes with that, whether you're having out-of-body experiences or not. And I go into a lot of detail on that in the books and in the films and all those things that you can download for free at the websites and the YouTube channels. But what I definitely feel that people benefit from knowing about it, regardless of whether they experience it themselves. And a lot of people do. We have a lot of people, and I was told when I was writing the books that people would spontaneously start having experiences while reading, like the Mysteries of the Redemption, because it opens up in their psyche the possibility, and then things start happening. And I have found that over the decades that this has turned out to be true. Many people just have spontaneous experiences, and that just starts happening for them spontaneously. The pathways open up. But it's also very beneficial, I think, just to be aware of what other people are experiencing. And even I love listening to the experiences of other people, because every experience with the divine that someone shares, just like with the prophets, saints, mystics, and sages, the ancient sacred texts, even every modern day person who has had an experience with the divine, they are sharing one of the many facets of this diamond we call God. And so every little time, every moment that someone has that they share, it's another way that we get to know him, the way that we understand God and universal being and what all that entails, because it is such a majestic and huge thing to know. And for me, myself, I just love hearing all these different things about him. It's almost like, I want to hear everything, because, you want to know your best friend as well as you possibly can. So you want to know your friend's friends, so I want to hear what happened with my other friend, with that friend who's a friend of God. I want to hear everything, that you can find out, because it does reveal to us this greater picture that all turns into this great diamond that shows us, because God is not one thing. He is so many, many, many things. But yes, I do think that there are ways, and there are a lot of things. We have a lot of resources to help people to have experiences. And patience is a big key in the seeking out of the experience. And I do think that the amount of experiences people will have will vary. I think the intensity of the experiences can vary. And I think that it's just very hard to know, because there will always be certain people out there who never have the experiences. Oh, and I do like to just point out that anybody who's ever had any experiences with the dark side, exorcism, or anything like that, it's generally not recommended that you try. So for people who have had stuff like that, you don't want to open that door, because you're a little bit more vulnerable and you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So just
beautiful. Beautiful answer. This has just been a fascinating conversation. How do we find out more about you? I know you mentioned your website. Can you mention it again and tell us about your YouTube channel? And maybe you could just highlight the books that you think are a good place to start.
Sure. It's outofbodytravel.org, and you can download all of our books and films as well for free at our other site, which is our archive site, outofbodytravel.wordpress.com. And all of our channels and things are linked there, but our YouTube channel is, you can look it up under the Out of Body Travel Foundation. And we have all of our films, all of our seminars and classes are all, you can watch them all for free. And we go into a lot of detail, like even on the initiations into the mysteries and the rites of passage, which a lot of people like. But for starting out, I usually recommend The Mysteries of the Redemption, a book called Come to Wisdom's Door. And I do recommend a film that we have called How to Have an Out-of-Body Experience. And I would add to that The Grand Phases of the Soul, which I think is really good to do right alongside that other film. And then there's so many other things there, and you can always email me at Marilynn Hughes at outofbodytravel.org. I answer all my emails, answer everybody's questions. If you need any guidance as to, this is what's going on, what do you suggest I read or look at, I'm happy to do that. And it's, I love, keeping up with people's, efforts and what they're experiencing, and seeing where they're at on the path, and seeing if I can offer a little helping hand to get them to the next step. And, so join us. And we also have, groups, and we have a Facebook page, and people can talk to each other if they want. Other people interested in the same.
Wonderful. And we'll have all that information listed in the description box down below. This has been fascinating. I loved it. Will you come back and see us, and so I can ask you more questions?
Happy to.
Okay.
Yeah, I would love to. Yes. Thank
Marilynn,
you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. It's been fascinating. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you in the next video. Bye now. I hope you enjoyed this video. Coming up next, this is a good one. Or you might really like this one too. Either one of them could be perfect for you. Before you leave, don't forget to subscribe.